I'm Christian.
And Cal State Dominguez Hills, we're with the Toro Cyber Defense Lab. Our talk is, hey, that logo looks familiar, or how we place third in the CCDC. So the whole thing, the title of this talk comes from the fact that we're not anticipating finishing third. We're going to go into some backstory of how the previous teams, previous years finished, and how our journey was a lot different than all of that. The closing ceremony is the final day. We hear the staff up at the front of the ballroom going, "Oh, and in third place, Cal State Dominguez Hills," and we're just sitting there going, "Hey, that logo kind of looks like what's going on?" And
Yeah, at the very first, when they announced Cal State Dominguez Hills, my first reaction, actually, we were at those circular tables, and my actual gut reaction was, "There's another Dominguez Hills here?"
like half of our team wasn't even sitting at the same table. Like, we were sitting one table, the other group was sitting over there. It seriously took like all of us to come together in about like a minute before we even like got up to start heading to the stage. And so, when we were that's kind of tiny, but so on day two they were projecting up there. They said Cal State Dominguez Hills was projected sixth overall. This was at 11:45. Then projected seventh on injects, also at the same time. Then at 5:30, we got an update that said we were still sixth overall, but we were projected third in injects. So we're like, sweet, we're third, okay. But like, this was the last update we got for like, 12 plus hours until the closing ceremony. So we were like, sixth, that's respectable, because the previous years, and then when they called us up there, we got third. But in the previous years, what happened? Getting ahead of myself, sorry. So basically, who are we?
Yeah, I'm Christian. Yeah. Our entire goal for this competition was to not finish last. That's the only goal.
So
Okay. Right now, I'm at Cal State Dominguez Hills. I'm the senior. I co-own a radio station, surgeradio.org, and I've been published in Hacking 9 magazine, and yeah.
So I just graduated Dominguez Hills with honors. I have a military background. I was in the Marines for 5 years. I have a Microsoft certification. My current job is systems admin for a small credit union locally. I've worked at a few different employers, and for me, why the CCDC is important is that it's a real world scenario. The way that the attacks come in and everything, it's not quite how it pans out, but if you think about it, my own experience, I've worked at 3 IT jobs in the last 5 years. Of those 3 jobs, 2 of them have been disasters. One of them had 8 admins in 4 years. So that's like 2 admins a year. And the network was a mess. And the other place that I'm currently working at, I started working there. I was there for 4 days. And then the IT manager drops his 2-week notice. And I'm like, I've never worked in a credit union. I have no idea how I can manage any of this stuff. And so for the CCDC though, the scenario is that the teams get help me out here.
What? We get some real world experience.
The real world experience is that the teams walk into an environment where the previous IT staff was just straight fired because of incompetence or whatever. That happens, but the scenarios that I've experienced also happen where I come into an environment, I have no idea what's going on, I have no idea what's on the network. So I've pretty much lived this before I even set foot in the competition. I think we all know CCDC.
Yeah, does anyone not know what the WRCCDC is?
Talk to us later.
Good.
So background on our team. Go ahead.
Okay. The first was in spring 2010. CSU DH placed last. That was our entire goal, was to not place last. Tim, he had a chance to join.
I had a chance to join, but like I was kind of, excuse me, I was kind of, unsure of my own skills or whatever. Ooh, I don't know if I can do it. And that team, like, if you go to YouTube and you look up WRCCDC 2010, there's like 2 videos. One of them is of a router or a wireless access point. Was that you? So yeah, that was our team. That was our team that you uploaded some disco lights.firmware to the wireless access point, and it's just blinking like crazy. So I was told that was our team, and all those team members graduated. We never quite got, never heard from again. We never quite got a straight answer from that previous team. So what's the competition like? What do we do here? What do we do this? And we never really got any kind of feedback. One of the guys we still saw around, we never really got it. So then in spring 2011, we were a no-show. We missed the registration deadline. We didn't fill out the paperwork on time. But we were there in spirit. The team manager, John, another guy who ended up leaving the team, and myself, we were granted a visit just of the competition area for like 10 minutes. And while we were there on the floor, I totally saw somebody just get pwned in the 5 minutes that I'm standing there. All I saw was a red team member up on the stage, typing away, just typing away on his keyboard, looking at logs, typing, looking at logs, typing. And then I just see this grin, and I'm like, he just got in? He just got in. So in that instant, my whole plan was like, okay, we really have to be prepared for this. So now we're getting ready to train over the summer. A bunch of emails are going back, but we just need a room. So our lab, we tried getting, so that wasn't supposed to show up at the bottom there, but our lab moved 3 times. Oh yeah, you guys can get like in the basement of the library. Oh no, wait. You guys have to move somewhere else, but like we never even found that interim location. And oh yeah, you guys are up to the 5th floor in the library. Okay, great. But we still need keys. So it took us months to get keys. We finally get the keys, and once we get keys, we're like, great, but now we need equipment. Oh hey, you got new equipment showing up next week. And what's this, a scrap metal sale? We had like state-of-the-art circa 1999 Cisco 2600s, like 13 of them with no add-in cards. So what good are routers that can't route? Like we couldn't work with any of the routing equipment. We had really old PCs, 512 megs of RAM, a gig of RAM, and using a lot of this older gear really helped us out in the sense of the competition, because that's exactly what we walked into. So, hey, that's a little bonus point for us, kind of, I guess. So then, now we got the room, now we need people. So, this is the top of the side, we got 99 problems, but a room ain't one. Or, where are my peeps at? Because it's spring 2012, we're getting ready for the competition, and we still have nobody. It's me and John, and we're staring at each other. Ooh, mandatory team meeting. And I'm like, okay, dude, I'm getting really sick of staring at you. It's just me and him. And we tried sending out mailing lists. John went out and did recruiting. We did mandatory meetings, like I said, but only the 2 of us were showing up. So at this point, we were like, okay, we seriously have to drum up interest. We've got to get people to come in. And at one of the class visits, he stopped in, and Christian was there. So they said, all right, mandatory meeting, the team members show up, and then so he shows up. And my first impression of him when he walked in, it's like, He's wearing slacks and loafers and a white button-down, like pristine pressed white button-down shirt with a Hack 5 track jacket on over top. And I'm like, well, he knows Hack 5, so that could be okay, right? And then all of a sudden, in 14 seconds, he rips apart this server. He's like, hey, is there anything I can help out with? And I said, yeah, sure. That server hasn't been working right all week. He's like, oh, okay. Then he says, well, there's your problem right there. He's holding the heat sink in one hand. He's got the processor over here. I'm like, how did you even separate? You had no tools. But the processor's over here, the heat sink's over here. And he's like, yeah, just the thing wasn't even there right. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's okay, great. So then on top of all that, he says, I'm like, dude, you gotta join the team. And he's like, well, I don't really know how much help I would be to you guys. What? Really? Okay, anyhow. So once Christian comes on board, we start getting a little bit more interest. We get everything, getting everything together, and then we start trying to focus on training. But a lot of different stuff starts happening in the sense that, like, we never really saw our team. Some of our team had weekend classes. The other part of the team had, night classes. People were working, so schedules just didn't meet up.
We never actually officially met as a full team until the morning of the CCDC at check-in.
5 minutes before.
Yeah, at 7:55, we all met and said, okay, so everyone's on the team? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, there we go.
Wait, we're still missing one.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Oh, there she comes. All right. Like, it was seriously like that. We hadn't met up our entire team as a whole until that morning. But in terms of training, we had 2 different approaches. It was totally hands-on, totally hands-off. Christian and I and Tom knew a lot of Cisco stuff. We had to kind of talk him into joining us there. So the hands-on approach was we got in the lab, we were installing the OSs. The hands-off approach from some of our other team members was they were just sitting in the room, kind of studying books, reading about it and everything. The hands-on approach was running cables, and then the other part was doing online courses from ISSA and SANS. And then just, hands-on, we were all over the place, installing Linux, installing Windows. We even built several Frankencomputers because of all that dead equipment that we had to, steal RAM from this one to get, break apart 3 computers just to get one working one.
Yeah, I think we scrapped more boxes than we've ever had in a long, long time.
And then, as I said, the team schedules didn't meet up. We didn't meet up. I would pass people in the hallway as he was going to the lab, as I was leaving the lab, stuff like that. So then the whole thing about, okay, now we got a lab, we got a few members of the team, but now we need internet access because we kind of have to install patches and little things like that. And what happened previous, which I had heard rumors of, but I never really seen, was the fact that the previous team, or not previous team, there was another computer security lab on campus. They had somehow killed production equipment for the entire campus network.
Oops.
Who knows what they were doing, but they killed some production equipment, and we were stuck living in their shadow because they're like, well, you guys aren't going to hack into the network, are you? Well, okay, maybe. I mean, no. I mean, no, we're not going to do that. But really, it's like we were being held, to the standard of the previous group, and it was just too much of a hassle. So it kind of reminds me of my sister's legacy when I was in high school. My oldest sister, I have 2 sisters. My oldest sister went to high school, and she was a hellion. She just, I have no idea what she did, but she just caused so many problems that when my middle sister went to high school, they were like, oh, you're her sister? And I was like, okay. Then I go to the same school years later, and they're still like, oh, you're her sister? I'm like, it wasn't even my middle sister. It was like my oldest. I'm like, so it just kind of makes me wonder, what did my sister do? Because it was just too much of a thing where wow, okay, so I don't know exactly what she did. So in that sense, there was a clause in our university catalog for academic integrity. And this was how I convinced the systems admin to give us network access.
Yeah, convincing the administrators of a campus to give you access to a potentially sensitive network, not hard at all. It's only takes, what, 6 months or so?
Yeah, it took a while to get internet access, but once we did, you know, essentially the academic integrity clause was, hey, if you're caught cheating on a test, you have to go to the dean. So what we did was say, anyone caught hacking the campus network, they'll go to the dean's office. If they're doing something stupid, breaking the law, they'll go to the authorities. Oh, and then also you're off the team too, you know, just little stuff like that. So about 30 days till the competition, roughly, it was all a blur. We get new hardware, yes, but it was needed config and we had to build it by hand. Because, you know, it's 30 days, we're trying to cram, get everything together, and what's the quickest, cheapest ways to get PCs? In pieces. So we got that. Going into this whole thing, we did develop a game plan. I'll cover a lot of these bullet points in a little bit, but essentially we had split it apart into 3 teams. We have an infrastructure team, a Linux team, and a Windows team. The infrastructure team would make sure that systems were online and go in and kind of pre-verify everything and try to set it up so that the users would, or not users, so that our team would be able to get in, kind of verify that a system's good, and then like hand it off and say, okay, this has been verified, so the Linux team can go, the Windows team can go. So that's just the rough overview, and you know, we had 30 minutes to try and accomplish 7 months worth of work, you know, little things like that. So just the overview of it was we did verification checks of everything. We verified hashes of all of our downloaded files. In Windows, we used a couple of different tools. One of them was a Firefox plugin called Down Them All. I'll get into that in a second as well. We verified DNS to static IP mapping in case DNS was poisoned. Red team's like, oh, you want to go to Google? Well, that server's just right over here. No, it's not, because that is so a 10 IP address. No, that is not the right one. So that was part of the thing. We had a few key sites that we had downloaded files from. FileHippo.com for Windows downloads, because they provide MD5 hashes on their technical tab. And in Linux, if we're doing installs through apt-get, yum, stuff like that, it would have verified it in the downloads there. So that was the hashes. DNS mapping. Our plan was Firefox only. Just eliminate whatever variables we could. And sorry for Cause, because that kind of broke his WRCCDC watcher, because that was pre-installed on Chrome to spy on people. Oh, look, Chrome's already installed. Double click, and then they could see everything we're doing. So that just broke it because we didn't use Chrome.
Yeah. Some of the other ones we used were, like you see up there, AdBlock Plus, NoScript, Down Them All, which that gives you the MD5. You can also verify right in the download as it's finishing. And then HTTPS everywhere. The EFF project, that really came out just a couple weeks before the competition. And that was a very nice thing, because we knew originally going in that we assumed everything was going to be spied on, which it was. So if we're going, how do you configure this server? They're going to go, oh, they don't know that server. Let's go get that right now. So the HTTPS, our first thing was, you know, don't Google things like that. And then HTTPS everywhere hopefully would help pull down encrypted websites, so we would get at least a little bit more protection.
It's not flawless, but you know, it totally gives us a bit of a head start. Also with that was with they were watching. I think at the final ceremony, we did hear somebody say like, "Oh yeah, one of the teams was surfing Yahoo for how do I configure this." So just this precaution alone kind of helped us out there.
Yeah, I think that's what the WRCCDC watcher was doing, was just pulling out all the searches that they were doing, and that's exactly what we had thought of for the competition. Was they're gonna, what we're searching for, they know that team does not know, so they go attack that box because they know that we don't own that box.
So other, you know, antivirus, anti-malware. that worked out fairly well as far as we could tell. Again, we know there's, I'm staring at you too, that's right. I know there's you know, rootkits and shellcode and everything that could kind of bypass a lot of that, but you know, this actually did catch a lot of stuff that you guys were throwing at us. But again, I'm pretty sure everybody got in. Obviously, Network Shark, or Wireshark and Network Miner. Network Miner, in case you guys haven't used it, it's a forensic tool.
Sorry, that mic's cutting in and out.
Okay.
Shut you up.
Network Miner is a forensic tool where it can rebuild the network traffic from PCAP files. So if it can kind of rebuild sessions, see where everybody's going, and you know, just rebuild all the traffic, see all the sessions. It's a really, really great tool. Wireshark, everybody knows, everybody loves. And then, you know, FileZilla. I only bring that up because this gentleman here came from a small town, came from Lancaster, and he never really had any like-minded people to share, you know, to bounce ideas off of. So at one point during the competition,
No, growing up in Lancaster, where I was one of the only ones that actually really enjoyed computers, and that was kind of looked at weird, but I didn't care. I like computers, so I'm gonna do my own thing. And during the competition, I was using another piece of program. What this leads to is I'm using software that's not industry standard or that's very common, but hey, I used it a couple years ago. I liked it. It seemed pretty cool. It had a UI interface, so that was perfect for me. So I end up using a piece of software there. I'm like, why isn't this connecting? Why isn't you know, we were trying to upload PCAP files, I think on day 3 or something, but
one of the injects.
yeah, one of the injects was upload your PCAP files that we were tracing the entire time. So I was using another piece of software for FTP, and it's like, it won't open, it can't connect to the server.
So as he's trying to send this PCAP file to the server, I'm like, okay, so pull up the logs and just look at the logs, because you know, in FileZilla right there at the top, it shows you the logs of what you're trying to connect to. And he's like, well, I don't know where to find the logs. And I'm like, use a real FTP client. And then I heard Red Team laugh, because we were Team 1, so right across the way, we just heard all kinds of chuckling from the Red Team. So, you know, again, heat of the moment, sorry, but yeah, that was funny as hell. Additional items we brought, whiteboard, you know, write up notes, do tasks, you know, keep us posted with injects that are coming up, binders. We actually had physical paper binders of documentation, quick reference notes, quick reference so that we weren't trying to, oh, how do I configure a router, and then, you know, pull up a, you know, 10-page or, you know, 10,000-page manual saying, oh yeah, flip to chapter 27. So we had just quick reference guides, all kinds of stuff like that. We also kept those in a locking trunk. Oh hey, it's lunchtime, we lock up our documentation. Documentation also contained our passwords. I had this brilliant idea to change passwords every hour. That so screwed us over because we got so confused. And I was like, ooh, change it once an hour. There's 40 or, you know, 50, 60 hours in the competition. So I had 60 hours worth times 12. And that's way overkill for passwords. It was randomly generated stuff I found on the internet. And we kept overwriting our own admin passwords. Oh, change the password. Because we didn't all realize we were all using the domain admin password. Don't do that, by the way. That is so not what you're supposed to do. We also had paper shredder. You know, once the passwords were expired, we shred them. Bad guys can't get them. Drinks and snacks. And pretty much most of those come into play a little bit later. So, yes, it's finally the CCDC, but not quite yet. Because we arrive at the hotel the night before, and we check in, the game's already on. Because we end up having a surprise late dinner with the red team. We go down to the bar, we're just trying to have a, you know, have a drink, have a beer, and then, oh wait, we see a bunch of guys walk in. Christian's like, hey, I think that guy's on the red team. And I'm like, okay. So say hi to Kaz. because Kaz was one of the red team that he recognized. He saw him on Hack 5, and he got like almost fanboy crazy about, oh my God, that's Kaz, that's Kaz. I'm like, whoa, slow down, dude, slow down. So he runs over to, he's like, ooh, should I ask him for a picture? Should I ask him for a picture? I'm like, are you crazy? And I'm like, yeah, paint a huge target on our backs, please. So he's like, ooh, okay, well, and then so he just, before we could even say anything, he just bolts over there. He's like, hey, didn't I see you on Hack 5? And he's like, can I get a picture with you? So then Kaz's reply was classic, and I gotta quote it specifically because he says, how about I put my face as your desktop picture? How's that? Would that work for you? And then he was still willing and obliged us, and he did get us a picture. So we got that. And then because of that, we knew he was on Hack 5. So again, fanboy stalker crazy-ish over here, he had every episode on his laptop. So he spent the next couple hours that night before trying to find the episode where Kaz was in Hack 5. And then so we watched it, and we found out a lot of information. He's web browser, plugin writer. He does cross-site scripting. He does Android malware, which doesn't really apply to the competition, but we could get an MO for him. So know your enemy. So the CCDC for real this time. But first breakfast. You can't go into this thing with an empty stomach. But the game is still on because we're sitting there trying to have breakfast, and then the worst eavesdropper ever is sitting across from us. Like, so bad, it just wasn't. This guy can't even do justice to how bad this eavesdropper was.
Yeah. We were all sitting at a table, we were having, our breakfast, and then we realized out of the corner, someone's doing this, literally, and they're not being sneaky about it at all, like this guy. He's literally, like, doing this, half leaning out of his chair to try to listen to what we're saying. So we go, let's mess with him. All right, so the game plan. Oh, by the way, he also has a pen, and he is writing on his napkin of the things that we were saying. So this makes it even funnier. But we were going like, okay, so what do we do? All right, here's the secret strategy. We go in, and we unplug everything. And we just take everything offline.
Just feed them bad intel.
Yeah, exactly. And then, because we assumed things were going to get poisoned immediately anyway, or things would have already been poisoned, we're like, okay, so we just do this. For all the Windows XP boxes, let's go out to just Microsoft.com and update right from the website and just do everything right there. No DNS resolution, no checking. We just go straight to there because thank you to whoever was doing that. But it's another story. But yeah, they were just, it was just downloading instead of updates, just malware and Trojans and backdoors and just making Red Team's life easier.
So, okay, for real this time. Day one, we get to the roll call, as we kind of mentioned earlier. We knew we had at least 6 on our team because we had everybody check in at the hotel the night before, so we're like, yes. But we had no faculty member to check in. I think they ended up calling Dr. Manson and saying, oh, hey, my team is there, but I'm not, so can you just check them in for me? Something like that. And so we ended up getting checked in, and then our last teammate shows up. We're like, oh, okay, good. But we're still shorthanded. We went in with 7 of 8 and no alternates at all. So we were just shorthanded across the board with everything. So.
Okay, D-Day. So we go in. We go into this pre-compromise environment. We knew things were going to be bad, but when we got in there, it was living hell. Some of the funnier things was just little scripts that were ejecting the CD trays into one of our other team members, Tom's leg, every 5 minutes. So just a little annoyance, things like that, little things that just mess with you. Linux services were all renamed. We'll go into that in a second. In the sudoers list, there was about 150 admins in there, and none of which were ours. So they were all nice things for the red team. And then, yeah.
Also, a note on the suitors list was the fact that everyone on the list, had admin rights. But what Tom ended up doing was changing the root password and then changing the config file, forcing whoever's logging in as sudo has to type in the root password. So that effectively locked out a few folks. Why are you still smirking at me at that? Anyhow, I'm just kidding. I'm sure you guys got in other ways, so I'm not too worried about that. But essentially, our game plan, well, meet the window, because that just kind of went out. Not really, but it did keep us focused, because okay, we got to get this firewall. We got to get the firewall up. We got to get the firewall up. It just, it helped drive home the fact that we needed to stay focused amidst all the chaos that was going on. There's a picture of the team, hard at work. We have Diego here, Felipe, myself, Tom, who just walked in the back there, Christian, Amy, and then the side profile there of John. So that was taken during day one by our coach. He showed up at one point. So what to expect, just the various types of attacks that we ran into. Cisco, everything got pwned. The voice over IP phones, for us particularly, there's in-scope phones and then there's out-of-scope phones. The in-scope phones were compromised within 15 minutes, and I had to call up the black team for something. I pick up, nothing. I'm like, oh man. So I pick up the out-of-scope phone. The response I got from whoever was on the other end was not even like, black team, hello, how can I help you? It was, already? Yes, already. We got pwned, yeah. So there was that. There was another attack they mentioned where once they got into the Cisco router, they turned QoS all the way down, and that actually pissed off the other red team members more than it did the scoring system or whatever, because the red team couldn't have fun anymore. So they convinced the guy to bring QoS back up, but he lowered it to baud, not even kilobits or anything. It was insanely slow. There was also VNC was installed on a few of these computers, and at one point somebody commandeered my screen, and I just saw the mouse. I had VMware vSphere open, and I saw the mouse just slowly going up to the corner. And if you know how vCenter is, or vSphere, you know that that's where all the cool stuff is at. That's where your main host is at. That's where your main, your listing of service. So you can only do damage up there. So I didn't know if this mouse was going up there to right click shut down or right click delete VM or something. So I grabbed the mouse, I tried, getting it back, and there's just this constant struggle with the mouse right in front of me, and I'm like, okay, well, enough of this. I hit the power button and just shut the whole server down. Didn't even think to grab the network cable and just unplug that, but it was, it was just crazy. On VMware, we logged into the VMware box, and then from out of nowhere, we see, your VMware box is controlled by a vCenter instance or something like that. And I'm like, that's probably not good. And it took me, I had to read it 4 times before I really understood what was happening. I said, oh crap, they got remote control of the box. Okay, and I don't know how they kept getting back in. Jolly and a few of them had quite a bit of, VMware hacks. And then later on that night, there was some kind of after party. I really wasn't feeling that well that night, so Christian ended up hanging out with the red team or something. I don't know. I was knocked out.
Yeah, myself and Tom went out to the bar and to the lobby of the hotel, and we were hanging out with the red team, which the red team was surprisingly very nice, which I don't know if that was just to get information out of us, but we were pretty tight-lipped. But no, they were very helpful. They were saying, in general, turn this off, or you should pay attention to this. You should pay attention to this kind of service, or this is how some people would get in. So they were giving us tips without helping any particular person. Then, ding. Yeah, Sunday morning.
Saturday morning. It's already work for you.
Yeah.
So Saturday morning, sorry, we were working fine for about an hour and a half, and then all of a sudden network traffic just ceased to exist. We don't know exactly what happened. We tried everything. We tried cabling, we tried DNS, we tried firewall rules, we tried natting, we tried routes. We had no idea what was going on, and it was down for the better part of the day. I don't know anybody else competed then, but I don't know if I don't know if you experienced the same thing. I don't. What's that? Okay, okay, good. It wasn't just us. Didn't come back till just about before dinner, maybe a little after dinner. I don't know. It's all a blur. We had to brainstorm several different ways. Okay, so if it's natting, we got to do it this way. If it's a route issue, then we have to do it this way. It took us forever to try and decipher all that, and turned out really, I guess, not to be us at all. So once we got reconnected, though, we started hammering out injects. Those of you not familiar, the injects are like the business tasks that we're supposed to be replicating, policies and procedures, how to handle, write up a policy, how to handle employee terminations, how to write up a policy, how to enforce historical passwords. And then there were also the technical injects of, we need you to migrate a Nix mail server to Exchange. I've been working in the industry for 5 years. I've never had to do that at all, ever. And they want me to handle this in like 3 hours? Okay, that one never got completed, by the way. Other stuff, install WordPress. We had other technical things. Can you think of any others that?
There was just little things. I mean, besides just the technical, there was writing up policies. How do you deal with the terminated employee, add users to this account, delete users from this account, which one of those actually helped out because one of them was add X user to the system, and then about a half hour later was delete X user from this system. Well, we never added them, so we just like, oh, inject done. And so.
Yeah.
How did you deal with the flash drives following from the black?
Oh, yes, virus.
I don't know exactly what we did. I think we tried scanning it on a Linux box first or something, but once we kind of deemed it safe, then we handed it off to the Windows guys, and pretty sure they may have gotten pwned with that anyhow. So.
And then we had talked to virus, I believe, at layer 1. We were just chit-chatting with some of them. And from the sounds of it, they probably pwned our box with the flash drives as well. There's no doubt about that.
So then at the end of day 2, that's when the red team just starts having shenanigans. They just start having fun. They were holding boxes for ransom. A dialogue box would pop up on there and say, oh yeah, dance the can down to the red team and maybe we'll free your box. Like keyword maybe, we'll free your box. And we, being that we were team 1, like right away, first one right next to the red team, we totally saw people running down the thing to the red team. Then they got hungry. They started having pop-up boxes that said, oh, we want snacks. We saw one guy carrying a big, tub of red vines down. Well, that was you?
You're holding them above your head, just going down. It's like, please, give us our box back. Well, at least they were nice. But yeah, they were turning on with the message box. They were turning on the legal message box or the legal message box caption in Windows. So every time you came up, came down, it was a mess. So you were just looking at that, but it wasn't exactly something you needed to worry about right then and there because the legal message box is more of an annoyance than you're being attacked they got in, so you're being attacked. You're screwed either way.
So then some of the other stuff they were doing, posting, the Twitter feed was huge, and we could see it clear as day, right? So they were posting paste bin, hashes to paste bin, and then tweeting about it. So we were able to get a couple of pictures of stuff like that. And then we were team 1, and this might be ours. I don't know. Oh, that's right, it is, unfortunately. The 10.0.1, that means it's ours. So yeah. This was our Windows 8 box. We'll get into Windows 8 in a few minutes. So they got Faffy's hash, and then oh crap, that's the administrator one. That's not good. But we don't know if that was domain admin or local admin, but they got it from the same Windows 8 box. So yeah, I mean, we totally got clowned on Twitter as well. Then in the midst of all this chaos, we get a white team member stops by our booth, and he's like, the red team requests the presence of your team captain up at the front. And then so it seems they wanted an offering for trying to help us. So we bribed them with a Mountain Dew, and then they fixed our server. We totally had Windows Server Core sitting there. We had no idea how to interface with it. And like we had scanned it and everything and like no services were running. And then all of a sudden after they said, we hear, I think it was Virus from the corner, "Hey, Team 1, check your .12 server." I'm like, okay, so it's at the login prompt, so I'm not gonna just log in, and because the only working credential we had was admin, so I'm not gonna unleash hell on my boxes in this network. So I actually unplugged the network cable, and then I hear this from the corner, "Ah!" So like they were so waiting to see what was gonna happen when I logged in, but I logged in. I didn't really see anything out of the ordinary. It's server core. I've never worked with that before in my life. So what we thought happened was that they fixed our web services, but that really wasn't the case. They ended up installing like Notepad on there so we can run like, because server core you can kind of run GUI apps, but kind of, it's weird. So like they installed Notepad on there, I think is what Virus told us at layer 1. And so when we were like, yes, they fixed our server. So like as props for that, we proceeded to give further offerings to the red team. And with that, no good deed goes unpunished, because what happened after that was we proceeded to offer, we dug through our cooler and we found like a bottle of balls, and we found a Red Bull. And so we went up there and we're like, okay, thank you guys, thank you so much. And Kaz walks over, because their long sordid affair that they've had in the past, and he goes and takes the ball soda, and he's like, all right, okay, great, I got this. So then later on we see this, "Sorry, Team 1, but thanks for the balls anyways." And I'm like, oh crap, what did he do? And then like there's no way in hell I'm gonna click on that during the competition or type that into the web browser. So like 3 or 4 days later, from home I clicked on that. I don't know why I wouldn't do that in the competition, but I clicked on it at home. Anyhow, so I go and I open up that link, and then we see this picture. Can you guys see that? It's basically RMRF/ with the bottle of balls right next to it. So it's like, yeah, thanks, but what happened was he was already into the box, and he had already had that ready to go. And by the time we walked up there, he was like, oh, well, okay, well, I'll just take the soda. And then so like by the time he walked back, all he did was just hit enter, and then it was over. So yeah, that was fun. Thankfully, I was able to get a snapshot of that, because we had lost it earlier in the day. I had a snapshot, but I was still scared as hell because red team had access to the box. Please don't delete my snapshot. I went in the next morning, restored the thing, and again, totally forgot to change the default creds. But no, like, because the next morning, there was pretty much no competition. So I was just scared that they were gonna delete my snapshot too. So Saturday night, we all went out, had drinks with the red team. We're talking with Faisal. He's telling us, yeah, so if the music's quiet, then you gotta be worried. And we're like, what does that mean? He's like, that means I'm busy getting into somebody's box. I'm like, oh, okay, because Faisal was the DJ, and that was like a total psychological warfare aspect of it as well, playing some disorienting, crazy, Skrillex and all this dubstep music and just loud womp, 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 and you're trying to, and Rick rolling on top of that, all this other stuff. So like I said, Sunday morning, we come in, we're ready to rock, let's do this. But when we walk in, there's like no red team there. There's one guy sitting there on a laptop. I think he was browsing YouTube or something. And then we see another guy come in. Okay, red team's coming. We got to prepare. And then like he just come up and he started rolling up cables and was like packing up, getting ready to go. So we're like, okay, so the competition's over, I guess. Sunday morning was pretty much just relaxed, and everybody was just chit-chatting, kind of getting ready to break things apart. And we start breaking down the pods. And when we start breaking down all the pods, as I said, we had a whiteboard in there, and we were able to like set that aside. The pod's all broken down, everything's ready to go. And from there, this is sitting up there, and I love the X-Men names, by the way, because that seemed a little apt for how they matched names with services / operating systems, because Windows Vista as the Apocalypse, I don't have to say anything else there. Professor X was the DNS server and the main controller, so, the leader of the team giving directions. I liked how they matched all that stuff up. It was totally funny. And for us, we did implement a monitoring server with Alien Vault. And Alien Vault is a downloadable ISO. It throws everything into one monitoring station. You have Snort, you have OSEC, you have all kinds of tools at your disposal. It does vulnerability scans, reporting. So we figured that's our most important box. So let's try to reverse psychology it and name it the crappiest X-Men I can think of. So our Alien Vault box was Jubilee. If anybody knows X-Men, I thought that was hilarious. Anyhow, so this is sitting right there in front of our pod that's all broken down. And then one of the red team, Frank 2 from DC 949, he comes walking over and he's just like staring at it going, And I said, you see something you like? He's like, nah, I'm just looking to see what I missed. So then this guy starts going, oh, I got something that you missed.
Yeah. In hindsight, he probably got into this box multiple times, but this is in the heat of the competition, and it's been secured for the entire time. And this box has also been running Wireshark captures since that was the first thing we installed, and it's been doing all this kind of stuff. So the first thing it goes is, I got a box for you. This is a Windows XP box, Service Pack 2, and it's got...
So as you can see, he's getting really excited about it, which plays into the following slides here, right? So if you look at Frank's lips, you could tell that he's about to say something, and it starts with fudge. Only he didn't say fudge. So Frank just Christian starts going off, oh, it's Windows XP 2, he's doing this, it's open shares, and he just starts getting, and the more I look at this slideshow, it's like 5 pictures, the more I look at this, the funnier it gets, because Christian is getting more and more and more and more animated as the slides go on, and then Frank is getting more and more and more bummed as it goes on, because it's like he's revealing all this stuff that he could have pwned, and Frank's just like, oh, and Christian's just, yes, and so keep telling him about what was on there.
No, it was Windows XP Service Pack 2, so Metasploitable, anyway. But we knew that Microsoft was going to be poisoned right from the get-go, so that particular box was more of a workstation, so I didn't even bother to do any of the security updates. It was the initial install. So it had Windows XP Service Pack 2, 168 some security updates not done, but that was my box. That was one of the ones I defended, and it was running captures for us the entire time, even overnight. It was running basically a workstation. During the competition, when we had other workstations, we'd say, we got to get this inject done now. We need a secure workstation. Hop on this. That never had a problem of things just randomly closing or processes disappearing for odd reasons or other things. So I'm going through this, telling them, oh yeah, it's got, I did this. It has an open public legal docs share on it that is accessible to everyone. It has everything. It's like the most vulnerable computer there, and it's Windows XP.
And the legal doc share was used in Injex later. It was like, oh, you have a legal doc share. We want to get hashes of that to make sure that nothing's changed. And so Christian's like, okay, cool. And so there's all kinds of stuff focusing around this one workstation. Anytime we needed to. Okay, make sure it's a good workstation. We went to that one. So then the thing with here was like the last slide. Christian's like, okay, you're getting all this, right? Okay, good. Like if you look on his face there, he's like, oh, you're getting all this? All right, yeah. So the last, we're wrapping this up here. The last couple things we got is that we ran into a few different types of systems that were total curveballs. You know, yes, there's a standard. There's Windows, you know, XP, 7, Vista, Server 2003, Server 2008. There's the standard ones. But then, and on the Linux side, Ubuntu, Debian, CentOS, etc. But the ones that totally threw us for a loop that we just stared at and gawked at for like, we had an Arch box that perplexed us for, what's that? Yeah, or no, that was Gen 2. But yeah, what it was is this Arch box perplexed us for like almost 3 hours because it was the one that had the pre-rooted RMRF shell. Like that was just part of the prompt, but like you're seriously like, oh crap, there's no way. Backspace, no, okay, that Control C, and it keeps popping up like, if I hit enter, is this going to wipe my hard drive? Like we seriously had no idea what to do with that. And we ended up having to burn like a bootable CD, check the file system, which Tom did all that work. And we ended up checking it out, said, oh wait, it's just the prompt, oh, okay. And then like that workstation just sat there. So like we seriously could have done something else with it. But the curveballs were basically Windows Server Core. I had read about it, never seen it before in my life. That was like the weirdest thing ever. So much so, like, some of our teammates, we logged in for the first time, they're like, oh my God, this has already been hacked. We're like, no, that's, oh wait, hold on, server core, okay, no, this is just server core. You're supposed to get just a command box. But like, where can I click down? Oh, no, it's like, it's okay. Like, we seriously had to do some stuff like that. You know, the other thing was the Windows 8 consumer preview they threw at us. I'm pretty familiar with almost all versions of Windows, so like I knew a lot of stuff would still work, you know, the run box or whatever, but it was still like, where's the freaking start menu? And it just wouldn't come up. Like, I don't want all these Metro crap. Anyways, so, and that was the other thing was Christian ended up doing a, you know, like a 5-minute crash course on Windows 8 because, oh, hey, I messed with this already and we done this. And then he's still sitting there like, ooh, I don't really know if I'd be a good help to you guys.
Yeah, when we got in there, it was a 5-minute crash course of like, okay, this, because I had messed with previously Windows 8 Developers Preview Edition, so I knew how to navigate some of it. And for those of you who haven't messed with Windows 8, which in a room like this is probably almost no one.
That's what's coming out.
Yeah, it's Microsoft doesn't sponsor this, do they? Good. I got no compunction about this then. Yeah, I really don't like Windows 8. It's not something that I would prefer at all, just for the title anyway. But yeah, it was really just because we got something new, and that's the whole thing of, we'll get into a second as well.
Yeah, and with Arch Linux and Gen 2, you know, we did have a Gen 2 box in our lab. We finished compiling all the last pieces of software 2 days before the competition, and we're like, well, crap, now we still gotta, and this was like one of the custom built Core, you know, Core i3 boxes, and the compiling took forever, so we're still like, well, we can't really use this box anyway, so that just threw us for a loop. We had an Arch box in our lab that we kind of tested on, but I had never really worked with it. Nobody really worked with it, so it was just one of those things that just threw us for a loop. Okay, well, it's there, but now what? So that's that. Now with that, we have, you know, just general lessons learned from all this. Specific to the CCDC, we realize if you want to do pretty well, focus on injects. Make sure you do incident response reports. One of the teams, I don't know if one of you folks there was, one of the teams ended up having incident response reports because the red team was trying to throw out, they had the quadricopter flying around getting pictures of, you know, like as people were typing on their keyboards, oh, hey, look, I totally caught their password. And so I overheard when I was waiting for the presentation, one of the teams was like, oh, well, yeah, we got points because we submitted an incident report that said we used tactical granola bars to take, you know, to do an airstrike on this quadricopter that was flying around. So focus on the incident reports as well. If you get breached, document it. That way it gets logged. You can get the points from it. The other piece that really kept us on track was we had a timekeeper. While all of us were sitting there trying to hammer out all these injects, one of the folks, Felipe, was going around saying, okay, you guys got 5 minutes because you're focusing on the keyboard, you're focusing on that other stuff, and just trying to keep all that. And below I listed a link that Mubix posted, which Rob Fuller, he's on Hack 5, he posted a week before the CCD, but I didn't see it until a week after the CCDC. How to win CCDC from a red team perspective. I started reading through this and I'm like, did that, kind of did that. And I'm like, wait a second, we did 90% of the stuff without realizing it. So that is a very good reference. And this is the last slide here. So other things to keep in mind is to just stay up to date. You know, make sure you keep on top of new technologies as they come out. Patch your systems up, because anything not patched is totally vulnerable. Nothing is safe. Nothing is sacred, and everything will be exploited. And you know, with that, I want to say thank you. And that's our team, although, again, our team never made up as a complete whole because Diego is missing from that one because I think he was having knee surgery at the time. But we want to say thank you, and thank you for our team.
Any questions?
Yeah.
What recommendations do you have for us next week?
As far as inject-wise, or as far
Overall.
overall? I jokingly last time for the 3 days said, why don't we just make it a pure, like a 72-hour straight-through thing, put a bed outside of the pod and you just take shifts and just the competition's on, but I don't think people would enjoy that too much except for me. Yeah, that's what I said. I said, do it, go for it. Because it's 24/7, just, it's always on. Let's see. Give us more space. Moving the things out, or the original, moving the pods, moving those things out. It took us about an hour before we were actually in there, before we moved the tables out and got enough space and moved the chairs out, but yeah.
I think that's part of it with the psychological warfare of being crammed in this tiny little space and then realizing, wait, we don't have to be confined to this, we can move the tables out. And so, but yeah, giving us more space would totally help, because we were kind of tripping over Diego's crutches the whole time that we were in there, because he was on, he had an ACL surgery, and so he was on crutches, and we kind of had to get around the crutches, and we were tripping all over ourselves for that first 30, 40 minutes. Any other questions?
Did you guys ever lock your server before about
What? What?
Did you ever lock down your server?
What? No, I'm sorry. No, that would be such a no answer, because, like I said, it was one of those things that we'd read about, never experienced, and once we got in there, again, wait, where's the GUI? You know, why can't I run apps? Well, you could totally run stuff, but you know, we weren't familiar with command line. You know, he's kind of familiar with command line, like net shell firewall stuff, but for the most part, 85% of the team didn't even know about that, and so he's that other 15% who did. So, any other questions?
Did you ever fix the morph box?
What was wrong with that one again?
Thank you, everything.
Tom's sitting back there going, so yeah, I guess we did pretty well with that one. I didn't work. I was kind of all over the place. I was on Linux boxes, Windows boxes. I was kind of all over. Christian mainly focused on Windows stuff. Tom focused on our Cisco stuff and the Linux stuff, and the rest of our team pretty much focused on injects. That was like the breakdown of it. Any other questions?
Will you make your slides available?
Sure.
Thank you.
Not a problem.
You know, we finished writing them about an hour ago.
We appreciate it.
We'll put them up on the site, so I'll be asking all the speakers for all the slides, and whatever we get, we'll put them up on the BSides website.
And as mentioned at the beginning, even though there was no demo in here, the demo gods did not praise us at all today. 3 Dropbox accounts, 10 computers, countless, upwards of like 15, 20 USB drives just to find the one file. Like, really? 3 Dropbox accounts? We have no idea where this file's at. And then we find it, and then the file's like so messed up, we spent 5 hours redoing it last night. So yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, we had to drive back to our school's lab. We were there until about 2:30 in the morning, just doing, trying to pull down some stuff. But yeah, because the demo gods didn't have any mercy for us for our first presentation.
All right, thank you.